Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? It's a movie more than just about racism and acceptance of one another. It's a movie that questions a conservative and regressive line of thinking. While it does primarily target interracial relationships in the segregation era and the attitude towards it, but it actually also targets the dynamics between a child and their parents, a couple when they grow older. And in general, it kind of challenges the norms we have as individuals or the approach or attitude towards certain norms that are laid out by society simply because it's either deemed unacceptable or something you can't go up against. But in reality, you have to be the change that you want to see in society. And sometimes what that means is rather than being caught up in the implications that your decisions would have, you just kind of have to go with what you think is right and really make your decisions on principle rather than society's principle basis. So, one of the main criticisms of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is that this colored man who's so well accomplished has to be accepted simply because he's a colored person. And a lot of people tend to think that the main sort of messaging of the movie is that you have to be so much, you have to be so well accomplished just to be accepted. And Sidney Poitier's character in the movie, um, this man, he was a doctor, he taught medicine, he provided his services in Africa as well, and a man who carried himself pretty well. He had everything going for him, and that's all of that would help him to get accepted. And so, a lot of people, when they look back at Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, they kind of think of this as the perfect black man trope that needs to be accepted by white liberals. And a lot of people tend to, um, believe in the notion that this movie was written by white liberals who made this like black person character into such a perfect person, and in the end, that person was accepted, by the parents because he was, even though he was a colored person, but he was great because he had all these other attributes that normally perhaps other people wouldn't have. Um, so, you can definitely kind of like see this movie from a perspective of, oh, you have to be so much just to be accepted. And the truth is, immigrants growing up in North American countries, not only in America but also in Canada as well, because you come from a different culture, different background, different upbringing. You definitely have to transition your way into the society that you're trying to move in towards. Um, in this case, the American culture, American society. And so this does mean that you need to learn how to assimilate, how to, conduct yourself a certain way and picking up certain ideas and opinions that would help you relate to individuals of this society. But, I feel like this is a very surface level criticism regarding the film because, and this is a sort of film that you have to see a couple of times to really truly grasp what this movie is talking about. Um, Mr. and Mrs. Drayton, their concern isn't regarding um, Dr. Prentice at all, in my opinion. They are not even concerned about if he's a good human being or not. I mean, of course, there would be concern about that to a certain extent, but in this given situation, because they know how well accomplished this man is. He definitely does come across as a guy who has great moral character as well, and it's evident to Joey's parents. But the actual thing they are very concerned about is the society's attitude towards their relationship. They know that being in an interracial relationship, and remember, this movie came out during the segregation era, right? So, I think in one of the scenes and one of the lines from the movie, um, it was, indicated that they would be literally considered criminals in certain states, right? So, their concern, in the movie was more so, about, how they would need to integrate, into this American society as an interracial couple, where America wasn't ready for something like this yet. And we know as you know, individuals who are 60 years in to the future. This is speaking from the perspective of when the film was released. How society, we would like to think how we have progressed a lot as a society when it comes to, um, you know, opinions and perspectives on racism. But, the incidents that took place during the pandemic, we can kind of understand that we're not as we haven't progressed as much as we would have thought. Um, and this movie was released in the late 60s. If we talk about, the simultaneous decades that followed afterwards, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, portraying an interracial relationship, on screen was still considered huge, even in the 90s. I remember from one of my previous videos, I spoke about Boy Meets World. One of the main characters, Sean Hunter, towards the end of this series, he's in an interracial relationship with a black woman, and it was still considered a pretty huge thing, And this is like 30 years after Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was released. So, Mr. and Mrs. Drayton's attitude is more so regarding um, the society they live in and how it may impact the loving relationship of these two individuals, and how it may negatively impact them and, um, and would hurt them in to a certain extent as well. So, in my opinion, this movie goes a lot deeper than that. This movie, it's more about challenging um, the normal way of thinking in society. It's challenging certain norms that are just acceptable and not questioned. Now, let's talk about Mr. and Mrs. Drayton's attitude towards this relationship individually. I'm going to start with Mrs. Drayton, played by the great late Katharine Hepburn. So I found her attitude towards Dr. Prentice very interesting because initially she was very shocked when she was first introduced to Dr. Prentice. And, you could tell that it wasn't a good shock. She did have a touch of disappointment, at least, in her reaction. And there was like a good chunk during the initial running of the film where she's trying to process the whole situation, but there's also a certain level of disappointment, and she's kind of like questioning the values that she brought her daughter up with. Um, the first scene that I want to talk about was when Mrs. Drayton, Joey, and Dr. Prentice, they are sitting in the balcony, and Mr. Drayton shows up, and she kind of like the way she tries to explain him the situation of what's going on. Um, Her tone was like, "Oh my God, what has happened?" And she was very much trying to kind of like not be disappointed, but she was at the same time trying to process the whole situation. And then there's the scene in the study where she's talking to Mr. Drayton, and again, she's trying to like question the values that she brought her daughter up with. And she mentions how she taught her daughter that, you know, white individuals were not superior to colored people, and colored people were not inferior, and were all equal. And so she says we brought her up with these values, and we taught her that, this was the way to think about um, other individuals of different race. But she says, and this is where she's kind of questioning, where it's another thing to have liberal opinions, but it's a completely other thing to actually experience um, a situation of this nature, you know? And so she says that we gave her all these values, but we never thought about how she may bring someone um, a colored individual home one day. We never told her that, these were the people you can't date, you know? And so her daughter is completely raised in a fashion where she is truly ahead of her time, and she really sees people from an individual standpoint rather than judging them from their race, and where their background is from, essentially. And so she very much is, I guess this is her part of like understanding and processing the situation, but she's kind of like questioning um, everything she has taught her daughter. But what I particularly found interesting about Mrs. Drayton's character was that um, about, I think, half an hour into the film, Dr. Prentice walks into the study, and he has a conversation with the Draytons, and he's essentially calling them out. He says that um, there isn't commitment from him yet, and what that really meant was, up until he truly gets the acceptance, he would not show commitment to Joey. And the reasoning he gave them was that unless if they change their attitude, um, with which their current attitudes, he knows that if they were to get married without the Drayton's acceptance, he knows that um, Joey's relationship with her parents will be damaged, and that in turn would damage Joey's and Dr. Prentice's relationship, because this would definitely sour into their relationship and how they would see one another. And so, essentially, what's actually happening here is Dr. Prentice, what he's trying to convey here is that I don't want to compromise my situation, my place, and my integrity here. He's very much trying to mind his self respect. Um, he's saying that if you don't respect me right now, then there's no point in, further continuing this relationship, because I know that your lack of respect towards me is going to sour my relationship with Joey. And so, what's essentially happening here is that he's calling them out on their attitude. And I must say, I really liked how Dr. Prentice calls them out. I really love how the scene was written. It was um, conveyed and depicted in such a classy way, where a man of his stature, a man of his, demeanor, he's, he's not like one of those, good men who would just kind of go by with everything that's going with them. There's a reason why he made it so far. He's a man of integrity and he knows when to stand up for himself. And so Mrs. Drayton, she understands two things. She realizes that she's going to lose her daughter either way if she doesn't accept us. And this person is, you know, is definitely not the sort of man they should be rejecting, first of all. But also, whether the situation is complex or not, she's gonna lose her daughter because if they half-heartedly just kind of accept the relationship, or rather don't in this case, um, and continue with the current attitudes, she's gonna damage her relationship with Joey, and it's not gonna be great in the long run. Or if if they don't really accept the relationship, and Dr. Prentice doesn't show commitment to Joey, it's still going to damage their relationship with their daughter because Joey is going to know that there was the primal reason, and the primal reason was racism, right? And which would really put them in a contradicting place because they're going up against the values that they brought her up with. And another thing Mrs. Drayton understands, and this is where I feel like the movie goes in a little deeper, especially into Dr. Prentice's character, is that she realizes why her daughter actually likes this man. This man is a man of integrity. He has a lot of self-respect, and he's willing to stand up for himself and for what he believes in, um, when attitudes are not going towards his way. And, I think like there's something about showing self respect as an individual, and sometimes rightfully calling out individuals for their unreasonable behavior, perhaps, so to say, where it could definitely help you earn the respect that you need. And Mrs. Drayton's attitude, definitely in that scene, and I feel like Katharine Hepburn really um, portrayed that attitude change in the character pretty beautifully and nicely, um, and it helps her develop a different perspective, definitely, on the relationship, and she definitely jumps on board. So this concludes this video. This video went longer than I had initially expected. So I will be making a part two, and in that video, I will be discussing Mr. Drayton's reaction to the relationship, Mr. Drayton's interaction with Dr. Prentice's mother, and an important and vital conversation that Dr. Prentice has with his father. And so, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for part two.